So let's start with your credentials. Okay.
All right, John Grace, founder, president, Investors Advantage, Westlake Village financial planning firm. In fact, our one of the things that we like is our trademark. The proof is in the planning, and registered representative and registered principal with LPL Financial.
Beautiful, beautiful. Phone number?
805-495-2077.
Is that a landline or is that a mobile?
That is a landline, yes.
Okay. And do you want to try out a mobile number?
My cell phone number is 805-208-0404.
I always like to make it easy for people to get in touch.
Sure.
How about an email address?
jgrace@ybpoor, WHYBEPOOR.com.
Love it. Love that domain name.
Yes, and that's our
Okay.
website.
John, what are we speaking about today?
Well, what have we learned, Bob, is a good question. And I'm fond of saying that, unfortunately, in America, we don't typically learn much from history because we're too darn busy repeating history. So we think it's a fair question to see what have we learned. And I must say to your question, I appreciate the question. Unfortunately, I've only been in the securities business since 1979, so I'll get it right eventually, I promise. But what I noticed is that so many of our peers, very good people, dress well, look good, educated, degreed, and in most cases have assets under management. We talk about our experience, and the truth is we probably had the first year repeated. You fill in the amount of years in the business, so the first year repeated 20 times. We don't really learn much, or at least if we've learned something, we don't often come back to our clients and say, hey, Bob, here's what we've learned. Geez, you've been through 50% losses in the same decade. Boy, nobody saw that coming, did we? Nope, I didn't see it either. Nobody saw it coming, so you can't blame me. But here's what we've learned, Bob. We had a 50% decline 00 to 02, a second one, 08, 09. And probably the good news for you, Bob, is you and your wife were working and making contributions to your investment accounts. So that was actually good news for you to see the market drop as viciously as it did, because you're still making contributions, which means you're able to pick up, think of it as like going out to the beach, more seashells when the tide is out, more shares when the tide is out, and then the shares go up in value and you actually have more money. That said, the problem with that pattern is it works clearly when people don't need the money, or the money's not that important, or you've got a whole lot of time on your side. It's a different story if you're taking withdrawals from any account, whether you need to or want to or have to, required by the Internal Revenue Service. If you're taking withdrawals and you only saw a 3 or 4% withdrawal rate after a 50% decline, what are your chances of getting back to even? Well, they're not in your favor. You certainly need here we go for Super Bowl Sunday coming up. You certainly need a Hail Mary pass, maybe more than one, just to get back to even. So yeah, it's a fair question. What have we learned that might prepare us better for the next time things go awry?
You bet, you bet. And what's so, you and I see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. And he looks young, but I got gray in my beard. So I'm no kid. But, it's what we learn on that path, right? So
Agreed.
that you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. You want to elaborate a little bit on that, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can talk about 2022. We could talk about 2008. All right. And we do pay for, here at Investors Advantage, independent research. I point that out because the majority of the financial advisors, my peers, do not. And what that means is that the majority of us are repeating what home office tells us we can say. And I mean, you know that drill. Stocks for the long haul, hold and hope, sit and take and buy and hold, buy the dips. And again, going back to what we were just discussing, all of that is just great if you don't need the money or you've got a lot of time to recover. But if you're taking withdrawals, it becomes a whole new ball game to see how you might limit your losses. So if we go back to 2008, because that was very dramatic for a lot of people, and it took about 18 months to see the stock market hit bottom. So when people are saying it's not happening yet, well, just stick around. It may unfold. But the point is, it's not about the prediction, it's about the preparation. And the 1-2 punch we employed for those who were willing, who were more interested in limiting their losses to the extent that that might be possible. I mean, I think it's true that savvy investors that we work with hate losses more than they love gains. So instead of watching your account drop 37%, that's about what the Dow and the S&P did, and many no-load mutual funds where, Bob, we've been all told to put all of our money in no-load, exchange-traded funds, mutual funds, buy the standard bearer, the S&P 500, some kind of an index, and just put your money on there and sit back and watch the road to riches get paid. You just get richer and richer. But it's those declines that really make it difficult. So the 1-2 punch that we employed for those who were willing to see what they could do to limit their losses had to do with 1, active management, and 2, greater diversification. So I know you're going to ask me about that and the active management. If you remember the movie Karate Kid, Wax On, Wax Off,
Oh, yeah.
I explain it that way. So in '08, most investors had whatever money they had in some combination of bonds and stocks, where the account finished, it started the year '08 and finished the year 2008, 5% cash, 95% invested. And that's why some of those accounts were awful, more than the market, at least as much as the market, up 37%, sometimes 40%, sometimes more. And Bob, this is an important question, because what we like to do is to take people back to see what their account did, if we can. So we might take their current portfolio, run it backwards, and see if you had held the same positions you own today back in 2008, how did your account do? I don't expect you to know this. We don't know. Let's assume you had the same positions and see how that account did. And in one case, this was a young woman who's been to 78 countries. I think she's 80 years old. I want to follow her. She knows how to roll. She was shocked to see that her account was off 70%. That's right.
7-0.
7-0. All right.
And this, when did you do this? Was this recent?
This was recent. Her son had
Oh,
a
wow.
sit with mom. He was a little concerned. Mom's done very well recently, early 2022. And he says, I'm not sure this is going to hold up. We're like, you're asking a good question. Let's see what happened in '08. And of course, she was shocked, as was he. And sometimes that becomes a wake-up call to go, oh, well, I survived that. I don't really want to go through that again. So what can we do to limit the losses? And the first answer is we'll apply better or more active management strategies. So what that means is once we sit with clients and help them discover, probably for the first time, not are you aggressive, moderate, or conservative, but what kind of loss kit can you accept? We'll make up a number, say it's 15%, and then we find out your account was down 70. You're like, ooh, I don't want to do that again. So the accounts that are actively managed are employed in such a way where the question is answered every day, and the question is, do we want to put fuel on this fire or water? In '08, you wanted all the water you could get. So you might have started at 5% beginning of 2008, but finished the year, depending on how much risk or volatility you were willing to accept, 40, 50, 100% cash by 2008. That limited clients' losses, in this example, to less than 20%, where again, the market was up 37, and many of the stock funds were up over 40. So when we're off, in this case, less than 20%, and then starting March 9th or so, 2009, we're seeing that the coast is clear. We can bring that level back down from wherever it was at its high back to the norm of 3, 4, 5%, starting March 9th, 2009. That means the accounts typically got back to even in a year or two. The passive accounts that stayed 5% cash and 95% invested took typically 4 to 5 years to get back to even in a very robust market. So this is what we're saying. If we can be successful at limiting the losses, we don't need that Hail Mary pass just to get back in the game. You know, when they say, Bob, if you find yourself in a ditch, first thing you want to do is stop digging. So we want the accounts to stop digging to see, to avoid going how low we can go, keep that ditch as shallow as possible when that is, one of those things that we can do. And then we don't need the kind of gains we would need. If we're off 10, we might need 10 or 11 to get back to even. If we're off 30%, we need probably over 40% just to get back to even. And that's the kind of math that people don't do.
Yeah, this is great stuff, because when you're an older person understanding what the markets have gone through and what the liabilities and the opportunities are, that's when you pay more attention and have a greater understanding. You know, I'm concerned that the younger people today don't have that kind of understanding. So I've got a 34-year-old daughter that's making a bunch of money now. And you know what she does? She leaves her money sitting in the bank, just sitting in the bank. What is that kind of return? 2% at best, whatever. So, but she's also got a doctorate in psychology. So what am I going to be able to tell her? Is she going to listen or is she not? Hey, listen, they find out over time. This is great stuff. This is something that people that listen to this might have an appreciation. If you don't, you should have an appreciation for who John Grace is. That to me is the most important thing. Appreciate who John Grace is and how his thinking goes. So let's do this. I think we really hit a ceiling on what we wanted to talk about. Give us your contact information all over again, please.
Sure. Phone number is 805-495-2077. There we go. Our website is YBPOR, simple words, YWHYBBE, POR, POOR. And that's how we can be contacted. I'm jgrace@ybpor.com. Happy to help people see what they can do. It's not about the prediction, Bob. It's all about the preparation. And unfortunately, most of us are ill prepared for what the research team suggests is right in our immediate future.
Well, you can only tuck your head in the sand so long, right?
You do. You expose some very dear parts to the wind.
There you go. I love it. All right, so people that are listening to this interview, my name is Bob on LinkedIn. It's Bob Holt, Holt. Last name Friedenthal, Friedenthal. I always say that's the hardest part in doing business with me. I love doing these interviews. I've done over 200 of those in a little over a year and a half. And I just picked up the phone. I'm kind of an originator type guy. I think of ideas and then I try to execute on them. So I started these not knowing where it was going. The original interviews were 15 to 25 minutes. I've tried to reduce them down to 10 minutes, which we are a little over, just a couple minutes over. And if you want to get in touch with me, 310-736-5787. And I'd love to be able to talk to you about John Grace or anything else that you could think of. And I love giving interviews. If you want an interview, get in touch with me. So, John, I'm signing us off. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob.